Modi government is moving to change how the election commissioner and election commissioners will be appointed. I'm Aditi Prasad, you're watching Hindustan Times, and today we're going to talk about this with former election commissioner S.Y. Quraishi. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Setting the whole story in context, in March this year, the Supreme Court had ruled that appointments to this poll body would be made on the advice of a committee comprising the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. The new bill seeks to replace the Chief Justice of India with a cabinet minister. Now, the bill is likely to face a legal challenge. I'm saying this even now, and may even spark an executive-judiciary clash in the days to come ahead. Sir, welcome to the show. Dr. Quraishi, I'm going to dive into it right away. You've been writing extensively about the need for an autonomous election commission. This new bill that in effect it gives the government a decisive say in the appointments to the election commission. Do you believe this makes the cut towards that autonomy?
Yeah, indeed. Although the Supreme Court judgment making a collegium was an interim measure till the law is passed. And the government has brought a bill. The government could have come up with any formulation. Only the underlying concern that there has to be a perception of neutrality in the selection that has to be maintained. Of course, the composition of the selection committee creates this objection that Prime Minister and his nominee minister will be two members and the Leader of Opposition will be the third member. So obviously, sitting here, we know the conclusion of what will happen in that committee. It's a foregone conclusion. So it will be 2 versus 1. And as it is, the Leader of Opposition had complained, I had read somewhere, that there is hardly any information given to him, the way he was treated, and all that apart. Now, 2 to 1 will not be the perception of fairness. Now, Chief Justice at least was an outsider. So one Chief Justice, one executive, that is the Prime Minister, and LOP was a much better composition. And that is the composition which is being followed in collegium in various other posts already. CIC, CVC, Director of CBI. So why it is being changed? Right. And it will create doubt. So I think it is undesirable. So therefore, the government should reconsider. However, two good things have happened in the bill. One is that a shortlisting committee, and the second is fixation of qualifications of eligibility. So far, for the last 70 years, there was no qualification prescribed for the appointment of election commissioner or CEC. Anyone could have come. It's a different matter that in the government, in its wisdom and very rightly, wisely, has been appointed civil servants because they have conducted elections all their life and they have brought glory to the institution. Therefore, now the government has said that the qualification will be that you have to be a secretary or equivalent, or you have retired as secretary. So this is the eligibility catchment area, which is a good thing. Now, the shortlisting committee under the cabinet secretary and 2 secretaries, shortlisting committee in itself is a good idea, and I had initially supported it. But lots of people have written to me, spoken to me, and given me this feedback that perhaps shortlisting committee is a good idea. But the constitution of this committee can be misconstrued or can be erratic, because who are the eligible people? Secretaries themselves. And here is the committee of 3 secretaries, in one cabinet secretary, 2 others who also are eligible. So there is a conflict of interest. They themselves may be interested in becoming commissioners, or they will be they will have their own bias. Therefore, perhaps there is a need for reconsideration, and the committee could be headed by.
I'm sorry. I'm just sorry to interrupt you, sir. You've spoken about a whole host of issues. Can I please ask my team to put out the graphics that we have on this, so that for people it's easier to see and understand what are the changes? Let me start by asking you about the main change that is being brought about. One of the key changes that is being brought about in the new bill, and that is about the the Supreme Court had said that the Chief Justice of India will be part of this three-member panel. Now, before the Supreme Court intervened in March this year, it was there was no process for the appointment. It was a political appointment to the Election Commission. But now, now that the Supreme Court stepped in March and said that the Chief Justice of India should be appointed, should be part of the panel along with the Prime Minister as well as the leader of opposition. There was one process that was courtesy the Supreme Court. Now, what the new bill is saying is that the Chief Justice of India in that panel, the three-member panel, will be replaced by a minister, a cabinet minister, which becomes a two members part of the government and one member part of the opposition. So there is an entire feeling that this will be something that is straight away into the hands of the appointment will be is in the hands of the executive, so to speak, the government of the day, and that gives them influence over that appointment. Do you believe that the Chief Justice's exit from this panel is asked for, or is it necessary to have the Chief Justice there?
Yeah, I think I answered that in the beginning itself, that
Yeah.
Chief Justice is the third party, whereas the two ministers versus the LOP, surely they does not create confidence in people's mind, because executive dominates and the decision is foregone. So therefore, having Chief Justice or his nominee will be a better idea. After all, Chief Justice is a member of a collegium in 3-4 other cases, and the system seems to be working fine. So, two ministers versus an LOP is definitely flawed, and it will not even test judicial scrutiny, and it will surely not stand public scrutiny.
Do you expect a legal challenge mounted towards this? I'm going to come to the other portions, other changes that you welcomed in this new bill,
Yes.
but just
Yes.
talking about the Chief Justice's removal from the panel.
Correct. The fact that this decision had come on a PIL, so same people are likely to go back to the Supreme Court questioning it, and therefore I do feel that this will go back to the judiciary.
You feel that this will go back to the judiciary, and then it's going to lead to another judiciary versus executive fight. Is what one foresees. But there is also this search committee that's been proposed in the new bill. That's a search committee headed by a cabinet secretary will select 5 names for the selection committee, and they will pick from these 5 names. What do you think about this addition to the selection process or the appointment process of election commissioners? Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the search committee that has been added in the new bill in the process of selecting 5 names. How is that going to help this process along? Is that a good move?
Yeah. Search committee by itself, as I said, is a good idea, and but its composition can be reconsidered, because it will consist of cabinet secretary and 2 other secretaries, and the consideration zone is secretaries to Government of India. Now, these 2 members of the search committee themselves may be a candidate, may themselves be interested party, and therefore perhaps it will be a good idea that a search committee is also independent, headed by a minister, and consisting of a nominee of the Chief Justice, and the third member can be cabinet secretary to assist the committee, because he will come up with the records of all the secretaries who are in the consideration zone.
Got it, sir. The bill also seeks to, downgrade the status of CECs and ECs. A lot of people seem to be finding a problem with this particular addition to the process, because whereas the status of the election commissioner was once sort of like equivalent to that of a chief justice, now they will be equivalent to a cabinet secretary. How is that going to, in terms of workings? It's going to be a little difficult because if they want to summon the chief secretary or a cabinet secretary for an election related discussion, How is it going to play out?
Yeah, I think this downgrading of the status of election commission is certainly not desirable. It's a retrograde step. In 1993, when chief election commissioner and commissioner were equated by the judge of the Supreme Court, that was a good idea. Now, internationally, election commission is a wish guru. We are trying to be wish guru in other thing, but here is already an established wish guru. We had set up an institute in election commission called India International Institute of Democracy and Election Management. In 10 years, 108 countries, their commissioners have come and trained with us, more, including their chief election commissioner. In many countries, they are judges. Now, judges will feel a little awkward dealing with a bureaucrat, even if he is of the rank of a cabinet secretary. It is totally unnecessary, totally undesirable, and thoughtless suggestion. And I have a feeling that it has crept into the system by mistake. This could not have been the government intention to humiliate the election commission by downgrading it. They should reconsider it.
They should. So many parts of the bill that you're talking about, that the government should be sort of reconsidering many parts of this bill, and in its present form, it's not likely to pass judicial scrutiny. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. Although there is one very good thing which has happened, which has not come into discussion so far, I'm surprised. One good thing which has been introduced through this is that the removal of the two election commissioners, which was not protected by the Constitution, has now been protected. Only CEC was protected. He could not be removed except through impeachment process as followed for the judge of a Supreme Court. The other two could be
Right.
easily removed. So they felt on probation, and through those two, the government could control and influence the decision of the commission. Now, it's a very good thing that all three have been equated, and all three cannot be removed except through impeachment process. Now, secondly, another thing about versus the cabinet secretary. Now, impeachment is not applicable to cabinet. Cabinet secretary can be removed in 5 minutes at the drop of a hat.
Hmm.
But impeachment is a complicated process. While on one hand, these three commissioners can only be impeached, but they are equated with a cabinet secretary. This is the most thoughtless part of the bill, which needs to be corrected, and it will be counterproductive. Globally, it will be counterproductive because dozens of commissioners who come to the election commission, and they are of the rank of judges and chief justices, they'll feel awkward dealing with a cabinet secretary rank officer.
Right. So I was listening to you. I think you were on another show. I think couple of days ago, and you talked about the fact that if the CGI is removed from the panel, it's not such a train smash, because in case there is a disagreement, it's the same, and there is a legal challenge to the appointment of the election commissioner or commissioners. It will go to the same Supreme Court, and the Chief Justice will have to sort of either recuse himself or be a part of that, or will not. It will not be a correct thing for him to be presiding over that decision, since he's part of the selection process. I'm assuming that that is not a concern anymore, and if not, why?
No, no. Actually, it is a concern, and what I had mentioned in my article was a possibility and a possible objection that here the Chief Justice is deciding the selection. There in the Supreme Court, he's hearing the challenge to that selection process, and perhaps the answer could be that instead of Chief Justice can nominate a judge or a former judge or even a former Chief Justice to be on
Right.
the selection committee. That will take care of all these concerns.
All right. So going forward, I mean, the opposition, of course, you of course believe that there will be a legal challenge to this bill, but the opposition instead is calling it an attempt to make the election commission a puppet in the hands of the prime minister, calling it a bid to rig the 2024 polls. Do you see it like that, or do you at least welcome it as or see it as a welcome step, given that earlier, from no process existing for the appointment of the election commissioner and election commissioners, Now there is, at least we are talking about a process that the executive is bringing about some changes in the process.
Well, I think there is actually a slight improvement because so far, the government of India, the Prime Minister could appoint anybody. For the last 70 years, the executive could appoint anybody. So the government was all powerful, but the same election commissioner appointed by the executive, once appointed, they were removed from removal, they were protected from removal, they were independent, and so many of them became assertive and really behaved so neutrally and so independently
Including
that
you,
they
sir.
brought glory
Including
to
you.
the. Of course,
Yes.
I would think so.
Yes.
The government did not have the guts to tell us what to do. We asserted our independence totally, and it is for everybody to see. We charge sheeted 4 ministers of the day, including the law minister of the land, who was
Right.
party to my appointment. So, because that is the nature of the institution created by the constitution, and we have our mandate was to follow the constitution, and most of us, I repeat, most of us actually the followed the mandate of the constitution and brought glory to the institution. One or two exceptions, actually, there were aberrations, but I would say that there were only exceptions and not the rule.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to us, sir. From what I gather from you, two, three key points that you brought about, that this bill, while it's a welcome step, that in the fact that at least there will be a process for the appointment of the election commissioners, but yet it's me. I mean, it might appear, because it might look partisan, given the fact that there are two members from the government and one member from the opposition. The Chief Justice of India, who's part of other such appointment panels, has been summarily removed from that panel by the new bill, by the new proposed law which the government of the day is offering. But and the election commission and is doing some great work, and it's the commission is like Caesar's wife. It's not just that they should not the commission should not just be above reproach, but also be seen to be above reproach and above these things. So those kind of things need to be taken care of going forward. And with the next 2 years, I think there's just going to be an election season for the next 2 years in this country, and therefore this bill at that point, I don't know whether the bill will be passed or not, but as Dr. Quraishi tells us, that there's definitely scope for a legal challenge to this new bill that has been proposed by the Modi government. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Stay tuned. We will come back to you with more. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.